Hi folks, welcome to today's color process video. Okay, so today we see the return to Ghost and Skeleton, which used to be, pardon me for a sec, which used to be one of my kind of regular recurring comics, along with the likes of Gramfell, and of course now we have Badly Drawn Dolphin. And Ghost and Skeleton are characters I really enjoy drawing, but for whatever reason over the past while, I've I've really cut back the amount of these comics that I do. Like it used to be that I used to very regularly draw these things. I remember there was one point in October of one year where for about half the month every comic was a Ghost and Skeleton comic. And now at this point, it comes down to maybe I can count on one hand the amount of times I do a Ghost and Skeleton comic. But they're characters I do like coming back to every now and then. And with today's Ghost and Skeleton comic, if you look at this compared to the previous one, there's a very marked difference in my approach to the coloring, say. Where with the previous comics, they used to be very very blank. There usn't all be all that much in the way of color in the comics, and then gradually I started working in more and more color as the art got a bit more elaborate, say. However, with this one, I went for the approach that I've used for a lot of comics of late, where I use just a lot of flat colors and gradients. And I did intend with this comic to go for a more painterly kind of style to the backgrounds, but again, it was one of those cases where I felt the flat colors actually looked perfectly fine as they were, so I stuck with that. And my approach to coloring this one was very similar to, I don't know if you remember it, but I did a comic a while back, probably is it a couple of weeks back, maybe even 3 weeks ago at this point. The kind of 1984 style, kind of like a post-apocalyptic kind of future, but it's or a dystopian future rather, but it's like it turns out it's Garfield. And in that, I used a very similar kind of color scheme with the skies, where you've got this kind of like blood red sky, but like there's a gradient into purple, and they're like the windows and the buildings are all like this vibrant yellow, but that also kind of has a gradient into red. And so with this comic, I went in that direction, and from there, I basically tried to keep things fairly simple in terms of my color choices. I didn't want to use a ton of colors, so you see a lot of repeating colors here. Say where obviously I've got the reds and yellows, but also there's the. If you look at the comic there, I don't know what point you're at in the video, but you've no doubt seen the comic already. So if you look at it there, I've got the say the ground, like the pavement, or rather the road that Ghost is floating along is this purple color. But I've also used that purple color for the backgrounds of the second and third panels, and then again, and again I've used that purple for the ground in the one, two, three, four, five, six, in the seventh panel. And it's just something I like to do. It's something I like to do where I like to have repeating motifs in terms of the colors, so that everything just works nicely as like as separate elements, but they also come together to work as a whole to make like the entire comic a nice looking piece. Another area where like I just kind of experimented a bit was I decided with the middle two panels there of Skeleton, where he's kind of like deciding, where there's like just there's just that bit of silence before he gives the punchline to the joke. Um, I I felt the colors I was originally going for just didn't look all that great, just with a plain bone white skeleton against a green backdrop, I believe was the original color I was going with, and it just didn't look good to me. So again, going with the approach that I was talking about, where I like to use repeating colors through my pieces, I selected the yellow and the red that I used for the red for the sky and windows, and the yellow again for the windows. And I made the background in the first panel with Skeleton yellow and made him red. And then I went for the opposite approach in the next panel, where I made the background red and then made Skeleton yellow. And then I made I went in the opposite approach then with the shading on Skeleton, say where in the first panel it's red against yellow, and then in the second panel it's yellow against red, and so on and so forth. And it creates just this nice, I don't know, kind of graphic effect. It just looks good, or at least I hope it looks good. Um, like I was worried that the original approach I was going for, that it didn't look interesting, so I wanted to go for something that looked interesting. And from there, it was pretty much plain sailing. I have to say, this comic, it's actually one of the easiest comics I've colored in a while. It was just one of those comics where it very much came together, which was nice, which was the complete opposite of the drawing process. Like the drawing process for this comic, I very, very nearly scrapped it, but thankfully I kept up with it, and we have the comic we see before us now. So look, that's pretty much everything I have to say about this one. So thank you very much for watching, and I will talk to you at the next video. Take care.